summer split of the SPL, so you don't want to make sure that you have to beat whatever rival would be doing in that final week, and I believe they play against this team, Elevate, in week number 5. But still here in week number 4, and Eanix can put themselves in a great spot if they find the 2-0 victory here today. Immediately in that first pick position, they ban away Bologna and the Fafnir. Elevate, they're looking at Fails in Eanix's jungle, banning away Cirquet, and then Soul for the mid lane Lobster.
And I like Eanix's decision-making to take away the Bologna and the Fafnir, trying to take away some of the more aggressive stances that Elevate have been keen on, and immediately securing the Osiris for themselves.
Yeah, Ducky has been playing Osiris for quite some time. Was one of the players that was playing him when really no one else was. Very, very comfortable on that Egyptian solo laner. Sun Wukong immediately locked in by Elevate. You'd expect them to kind of hold that a little bit longer, knowing that Eanix already has their solo laner, but sometimes in that sort of position, you don't want to show your hand too much, so you just pick a safe pick like Wukong.
I think that numbers also just feels fairly comfortable on this Wukong. Yeah. It is incredibly safe as far as survivability is concerned, especially facing off against a lane beast like Osiris, sure. But the immediate Nemesis and Terra pickups by Eanix are excellent responses.
Yeah, I like that Nemesis pick quite a bit, and Big Man Ting's very comfortable on that Terra. Elevate immediately going to the Ares though. Dardaz very, very comfortable on this god, likes to play it quite a bit, and has a pretty good matchup up against Terra, can pull her in because she doesn't have that CC immune ultimate.
Can pull her in, but Ares into Nemesis is
True.
Not typically the standoff that you really want to go against. I know a lot of junglers who pretty much anytime they see an Ares and they're on that Nemesis, it just looks like a tasty snack.
That's true, but if Nemesis falls a little bit behind or Dardaz gets big, I mean, Ares can make it difficult for Nemesis to do it. There's kind of counterplay for both sides there. Both do well against one another. Elevate bans out some Hunters, Ramen Hu Yi, Eanix, Nox, and Naja, and Elevate going for that Giannis for Nulissa.
I wouldn't be surprised if Elevate's game plan here is to just look for the comfort picks, because, I mean, Giannis is one of the few times that we've seen this draft, or this roster, I should say, have a lot of success, and that's mostly just because of the fact that Nulissa is so organized and coordinated on the Giannis. Kronos
and Medusa rounded out for Eanix, two auto-attack damage dealers, and man, European mids just love, Europe in general just still loves these magical ADCs. No matter how many nerfs they take, they still go back to them time and time again. And Odin, last pick here for Elevate. So could be Wukong jungle like we saw Obey do earlier, though I imagine it's going to be Odin in the jungle and Wukong in solo.
I would prioritize Odin in the jungle simply because an Odin is going to have a much easier time as far as rotations are concerned, shutting down that Nemesis Terra a little bit early on. Plus, just so much damage in that Bird Bomb for the Kronos. Kronos doesn't have a whole lot of health.
True, very low HP pool, especially in the early game. Ready to go between Eanix and Elevate.
Should've
Lobster,
known.
Yep. Lobster going Medusa in the mid lane. Funball taking that Kronos to the duo lane.
It's one of those things where, like, as soon as you say a statement, you realize that it's EU, and it's probably going to be an ADC, magical ADC in the duo lane.
Right. You never know what you're going to get out of these guys. They've always got a different god pool than their NA counterparts. Lobster took a lot of poke before that level 1 wave. Jermaine's still lurking here, but it looks like he's just going to go back towards the red buff to join up with Dardaz. Cherio and Nulissa get the better end of that clear, as you would imagine they would. With Odin, it really boosts your early clear to have this character along with you.
Nemesis can kind of struggle a little bit early on, so it makes sense for Cherio to be piloting this Odin, and Cherio especially because he favors these Guardian-esque type picks so much that I think it's really just funneling so well into his playstyle.
I mean, he wanted to play the Guardian role coming into Season 4, or excuse me, the summer split of Season 4. Didn't end up working out there for him on that team that he was playing in the Challenger Cup, but now back in the jungle here for Elevate. Eanix pretty much even with them across the board right now. Each team getting their own sets of buffs, no invades on either side of the map. And as they mentioned during the last set between Energy and the Poppies, duo lane meta has kind of transformed into just going to your own buffs, letting the wave clear itself. Why do you think that is right now, Taco?
People just wanted to start hitting level 2 again. That's really all that it boils down to, because even if you lose a little bit of the wave, as long as you're heading into lane at level 2, you're still relatively safe. And if the enemy duo lane doesn't opt to secure their buffs or enough farm to hit level 2 amongst that wave, then you have a very good chance of getting the first blood.
So teams should just pick Izanami, let her solo the wave by herself, and win the game for free.
Something about Izanami just... I'm not sure that's the direction you really want to go in. probably won't be seeing a little bit of her for a while.
Remember whenever everyone was so scared about her and Apollo at the beginning of Season 4?
Well, that's because she was actually great in the crit meta. She was fantastic. And
yeah, the double poison star was really strong.
Yeah, and now that it's gone, and Apollo is just his own storyline. I mean, he never really gets to be considered OP, I should say, for longer than a week before everybody starts raging again, because they kind of forget that Huyi on her Medusa and almost every hunter in the game is pretty solid at soloing him.
I mean, Apollo was so dominant for so long at the beginning of competitive Smite, and I think everyone just kind of gets flashbacks to Apollo being so dominant. He needs his knockup back on his ultimate, that's all I'll say. Fails in the mid lane. Not quite level 4, and Cheerio is, but Fails still willing to play aggressive into that matchup.
I like how Fails wasn't deterred in the slightest there, still looking to go in, just because the thing about Odin and Giannis is that they're still not going to have a whole lot of kill potential. Everything has to line up just right. Cheerio's got to hit a solid bird bomb. Nalissa probably needs to land that unstable vortex like to a T, otherwise the damage probably won't be there.
Cheerio, here he comes, trying to find that cage onto Big Man Tings, but Big Man Tings going to be able to get into the safety of his tower before that bird bomb animation finished there for Cheerio. Quick reaction time from BMT saves that first blood from going Elevate's way.
But yeah, like I was saying, my only concern for Elevate is that Odin really prospers in this early up until the mid-game stage. Then he's primarily just the ult bot. But if you're not having the follow-up damage immediately for his ultimate, then the idea behind it kind of just falls off.
That's true. I mean, usually you're used to seeing the Vulcan ult, the Zeus ult, things like that. Even things like Kukulkan that can cover a big portion of that ultimate are good enough to follow up off Odin Cage. Elevate doesn't really have that. Their best AoE damage ability is the Wild Hunt out of Germain. I mean, that's really about it. Unstable Vortex is still one of those abilities that can be tricky to hit, even with someone in a confined space like an Odin Cage.
I mean, I don't even think that Big Man Tings is too concerned either, because he was more worried about the Ares than the Odin, opting to pick up the Purification Beads as opposed to a Phantom early on.
That's true. Yeah, 4 sets of Purification Beads for Eanix. Really trying to make sure that Dardes doesn't run the game quite as well as Emilzy did earlier on today on the Ares in Obey's set. Ducky under a little bit of pressure on this right-hand side, but he's trying to return a little bit himself. Speed buff was invaded by Eanix successfully. Cheerio wasn't there on time. Cheerio still hasn't backed quite yet. Playing a little bit greedy for those Warrior Tabi finish pretty early on. Fails in a lot of trouble though, but Cheerio misses the bird bomb, was more worried about going for the blue buff. Now there comes the ultimate onto Cheerio. Ducky gonna be able to walk right through that Odin Cage, and that's gonna do it for Cherry. Didn't even use his Bracer of Undoing, and it's because of the anti-heal coming out of Ducky's ultimate. Bracer gets affected by anti-heal Taco. Bracer's not going to do you any good once you get hit by Osiris ult.
Not in the slightest, and that was an excellently timed ultimate from Ducky. And as soon as he recognized that he had enough damage to secure the kill onto Cheerio, just dives the T2 tower, no hesitation, and that's what you need to do every single time if you want to shut down this Odin early.
The 2 new members of Eanix, new for the summer split, working together there to combine for the first blood for Eanix. Also got to give shout-outs to the Terra ultimate, giving Ducky that speed to get through the Odin ring and get to Cheerio, close that gap.
Imagine a Terra ultimate could count as assist.
You know, Jeff Hinlow once complained about that.
Really?
To me and Hindu Man on our podcast, and
that'd be a little bit too intense, I think.
And this was when Terra was at her height still too, and we were like, really, Jeff? You're gonna sit here and you're gonna ask for Terra buffs right now? Really?
It's weird though, because he's Canadian. They don't normally complain.
That's true. Oh, have you met Jeff Hinlow?
He's probably gonna get me later for calling him Canadian.
Yeah, he is. He's the nicest angry man I've ever met in my life. He really is. Eanix sitting up 1 kill right now. First blood went their way on the right side of the map. If you're just joining us, Eanix needs to find this 2-0 victory to put themselves in a decent position to qualify for DreamHack Valencia. They could lose this set 2-0 and still be alive, but it would require them to do better than whatever rival would do. But Eanix would be playing energy in their final week. So if they can win this one, either way they control their own destiny, Taco, but as we've talked about, this would really set them up for a much easier path to Spain.
I just can't get over the fact of how much of a final boss destination they actually have. Like, that's literally the Bowser in the castle for them.
Energy waiting for them in week number 5. 3-man grouping in the mid lane here from Elevate. Fails thinking about wrapping around the back side. especially with Funball here to support. There's a slice and dice, but the Petrify from Lobster just a little bit too far away. Now Fails is locked in that cage. Cherio gonna heal up from that Bracer of Undoing, and Dardes finds his own ultimate. No pulls in, but Ducky is here with that Lord of the Afterlife. Not enough damage to follow up from it though, and Dardes gonna be able to escape courtesy of Nulissa's through space and time. That was exactly what you were worried about, Taco. That was a good cage from Cherio, and it was Fails locked in there, but not a lot of follow-up damage.
I think Eanix just got incredibly lucky in that engagement, though, at the fact that Elevate are lacking so much early game damage, because I think any other burst combination that they would have had alongside of that Odin cage, Fails is guaranteed dead every single time, especially with the Petrify from Lobster being just off the mark.
It was very close there, but no team lost a member somehow in that mid lane despite an early 5-on-5 grouping. Speed buff did go Cherio's way this time around, to be able to secure his own buff on that right-hand side. No numbers, teleporting back into the lane, now has an opportunity to go and pick up his own blue. Only buff still standing on the map for the time being. And these two team compositions, you mentioned that you're looking at Cherio to really have success in the early to mid stages, but Eanix's composition is just filthy come late game. I mean, you've got a Hunter, you've got Nemesis, and you've got Kronos.
Yeah, Kronos is basically that hybrid. If he wants to be a Hunter, he can be a Hunter, or Funballer can take up that magical damage road that Eanix could potentially be lacking. And Funballer, being as skilled as he is, he can really opt for either direction.
Could go for that mage sort of burst damage with the abilities route, or focus a little bit more on the auto attack items such as Demonic Grip, Telkine's Ring, even a Fatalis. I think Fatalis is one of those items that used to be built in a Chronos kit, and you know, a lot of people still upset that it isn't there. But when you think about it, building Fatalis is just putting a lot more damage into Kronos' kit now than he had before because of that extra penetration that it gives you.
I do think it's interesting, though, that Funballer is playing the Kronos in a matchup against Jermaine. These are two very aggressive ADC players, and so for Funballer to have to kind of tone it back a little bit, really just look for the farming route rather than the typical, let me try and outpoke you like route, that can be a little annoying as an ADC when you just love getting in somebody's face.
Are you surprised to see Jermaine go for Ichaival here instead of the Silver Branch bow, the magical equivalent? I'll ask you that in a moment as Funball is caught out here in his own jungle. Meanwhile, Lobster found Nulissa in that mid lane. The cage come down, and immediately Funball uses that rewind. Can't decide on the target. It's going to be Cherio. Petrify comes through. That time, it's going to hit. Good bracer, though, from Cherio. Boosts his health back up, and Dardes has arrived. Good damage coming out of the change. Cherio gets up and over that wall, but fails, waiting for him on the other side. The auto attack cancel with the shield is good, and Eanix puts number 3 on the board, putting down Cherio for the second time.
The downside of Odin, kind of just nowhere left to go, and Funballer, the patience that he had on that Kronos ultimate, beautifully timed all around, still coming out full health and able to re-engage off of it.
You know why everyone's starting to play Kronos now? They realize he has a Bracer of Undoing as his ult. Like, wow, everyone thinks this relic is so good.
Secondary bracer.
2 Bracer Kronos. And then you play him with Kepri.
Just stop.
5 lives.
Stop.
Can't kill him. Dardes going to take a decent amount of poke, but doesn't even need Nulissa's retreat portal. Going to put some damage back onto Funball. Dardes has not been able to have that big impact early on this Ares, in large part due to the 4 purification beads picked here by Eanix. And not only that, but Lobster and Funball both having those CC immune ultimates. Ducky as well. We saw Emilzy play his Ares earlier into a composition that had very few CC immune ultimates. Eanix has a little bit more counterplay to that Ares ult.
And really, it's only Fails who has to stay super wary about these Ares ultimates, because I think that Big Man has already started to reach a stage where he's tanky enough to kind of survive whatever might come to him if he gets pulled out of position. And
that Mark of the Vanguard's going to pay big dividends up against the Ares. All of Ares damage dot-based, so Mark of the Vanguard going to reduce all of those damage sources by 4 each time. That's going to help him feel a lot tankier than he actually may be. Ducky feels pretty tanky still, but not tanky enough to hold his ultimate in that scenario with 3 members there and only big man things coming to support. Ducky takes a safe option and ults away.
Just barely getting clipped by that unstable vortex, I believe, but still not a whole lot of damage just yet onto the young solo laner, and opting for the mystical mail as well. But you were asking me about Jermaine opting for the Ickful as opposed to the silver branch bow, and personally I think that this is the better direction to go for this game, simply because he's a lot more concerned about the physical gods that are on Eanix, because you're gonna have the Osiris, you're gonna have the Medusa and the Nemesis. These are all, or primarily the Nemesis and the Osiris, those are guys that just want to press W at you and not let up anytime soon. So if he has that Ickful, it's going to provide him a little bit more boxing potential and some kite ability, as well as just general damage to these guys if they keep trying to just stay on top of him.
But don't you think that makes him lose his solo potential against Funball in lane? You mentioned that, you know, Jermaine's a guy who likes to play aggressive. If you go Silver Branch, I think you've got a much higher chance of finding that one-on-one kill in lane.
You won't get the same kind of passive proc off of the Ickful, obviously because you're playing off against a magical god, but it's still enough damage and attack speed to where you'll honestly be fine for the most part. You don't really notice much of a difference.
Fair enough. Warlock Sash is the call for Funball, though, on the other side, and really focusing on that late game, not worried about the early stages, especially with how good of a start Eanix has gotten off to. Jermaine takes a little bit of poke, and it's enough to force the ultimate out of Nulissa, trying to get there to support their Hunter in time. Elevate do just that, but the chase was really over. Ducky forces out No Number's ultimate on the right-hand side as well, so 2 ultimates for none on the side of Eanix.
This has been an incredibly rough laning stage for No Numbers, especially because he opted for the Gladiator Shield. Meanwhile, Ducky's got that mystical mail, so while he's wailing on him, he's also taking damage, like just tick damage over time.
And he's gone for this Gladiator Shield and what's going to be a Hide of the Urchin. And Hide of the Urchin's a great protection item, but that's going to be 3 items in a row where No Numbers gets 0 health. And against Nemesis, your protections don't really matter that much. Health usually a little bit better up against Nem, and if Fails recognizes that, that could be an easy kill opportunity on the right side.
I'd imagine that Fails is kind of just trying to bide his ultimate and really wait for the counter-engage potentials, because if he's using his ultimate whenever Cherio's trying to drop that Odin Cage on him, or whenever Dardus is trying to pop his chains and pull everybody in, then it provides an easy all-in burst possibility onto either of those 2 gods. So that's probably why we don't really see him hanging around the Sun Wukong's lane too much.
It's what Nemesis does best, just bursts tanky targets, or really any target whatsoever. Nemesis can really do it all out of that jungle. That's why we see her getting a slight adjustment coming up right before the DreamHack patch, and Fails playing her very well thus far, sitting at level 13. He's 1-0-2, been a part of each of the kills so far for Eanix, and this has been an interesting summer split for this team, Taco. This is a team that started off really, really hot to start the split. I believe they split down the middle with Obey towards the very beginning, and everyone was saying, man, this team's legit. Obey looked dominant during the spring split, and Eanix with these roster changes came in and took a split with them, but has had a couple rough games since then.
Well, I think a portion of that, meanwhile, all I thought it was going to be Eanix actually just bursting down this portal demon. That was insane. But back to what I was saying is that in Anorex's interview that we had with him earlier today, he even stated, I think we came into the spring split a little bit too confident. Like after the spring split, we came in too confident to the summer split. He doesn't think that they've been playing to their fullest potential like they have been. And I think Eanix kind of fell victim to that amped up Obey. And that's kind of where that public perception came in, that this team is OP. These guys are insane. This roster is just going to farm everybody. And realistically, I think it's still an incredibly strong roster.
Cherio in a lot of trouble. He's just able to get out of danger there. The jump animation started, and whenever Odin gets stunned in that middle of the jump animation, looks a little wonky at times, but the jump gets off there for Cherry just in time.
It's like that for any gods with jumps. If they are getting stunned, they will just land wherever they were originally going to be.
Now Nulissa forced a portal back towards her own tower. Cherio again creating that frontline zone, and you were worried about how much Elevate would get out of this Odin in the early game. Well, we're 16 minutes in, Taco, and Cherry's got about 2,000 player damage, and that's not saying, you know, he's not doing a good job. That's about standard for the pack right now. No one's doing player damage early on.
Other than Ducky. But
other than Ducky.
He's Osiris, so that kind of just doesn't count.
He's cheating.
It's not allowed to count, yeah. It's not allowed to count when you're playing Osiris.
Gold Fury pulled to about half HP, then Elevate let it go. Not a lot of burst secure on their side. All right, so Taco, let's talk about this. Giannis, can we buff this character yet?
No.
Please?
No, he's not. Giannis just is not allowed to be buffed it is okay for some gods to not be super crazy good in metas at all times.
But he is good, right? I mean, he's still got the through space and time. He's got the unstable vortex. Does plenty of burst damage in the late game. What is the reason that Eanix has fallen off from being the most insane god in the game?
Eanix doesn't give you that all-in potential that you want early on because this meta is so based around, like, your first 3 levels are incredibly important, especially at the competitive level. So when you have a god such as Eanix that doesn't exactly provide you a whole lot of fighting potential, levels 1 through 3, it kind of makes things a little bit more awkward, especially in comparison to some of the mids that we tend to see favored right now. So I love Eanix. I think that the god definitely has its own niche. It's just that right now it isn't the time period for Eanix, and I'm not very upset about that because there is nothing fun about a game going to the 30-minute mark and you're trying to have a solid, well thought out, coordinated team fight, and then the next thing you know, you just get hit for 1.7k damage and you don't hear it coming.
What do you mean? I have plenty of fun doing that to people. That's one of the most fun things that I do.
That god.
Yeah, I know, and it's awesome. He's so much fun to play.
Terrible.
All right, well then, if we can't buff Eanix, can we buff Zeus yet? Yes, thank you.
No.
Taco shook her head. Yes, you guys just can't see it. Take my word for it. Jermaine dinging level 17 on the left-hand side. He's finished off that shifter shield, so as you mentioned, a little bit more worried about Fails and Ducky getting on top of him than Funball in the lane. The shifter shield obviously providing quite a bit of power, but that defense as well. And after Nemesis ult, you're basically in that defense threshold right away.
And that's kind of a downside to Jermaine picking up the shifter shield, actually, because you typically opt for this item if you can maintain 50% health or higher, because that's what gives you the initial power boost. But if you're constantly being pressured out to below 50% health, then you just have no damage.
That's true, and doesn't have any damage built in outside of that shifter shield, basically. Ikaval, of course, providing some, along with some penetration after some auto attacks, but not that initial burst damage from the Bramble Blast or anything like that. Needs to hit those auto attacks first. So keep an eye on how much damage Jermaine is going to be able to do in the middle of these team fights. And Elevate really needs to have him do that damage with the way their draft has kind of gone the way this game. I mean, we talked about it earlier on. Not a lot of burst across this team, at least until, 28 minutes, about 10 minutes from now is when Nulissa will start to really bring that burst damage. And
I think that for it to be that time when Nulissa is starting to spike up in her damage, it's kind of awkward considering that you have an Ares and an Odin on your team.
It's
because
true.
That's not when you don't want to wait until the 20-minute mark to start being Ares.
Well, it's 20 minutes and Elevate's waited so far. No more waiting for Big Man Tings. He stuns out Dardaz. Cherio locks Lobster in the cage, but it's just those two dueling it out. Lobster realizes he can just turn and fight Cherio and be okay with it. There's Big Man Tings' ultimate, giving that extra movement speed to all of Eanix to make sure that they can chase down any stragglers. Can't chase down anyone with through space and time on the map, however. Nulissa has used that ultimate exclusively as an escape route so far in this game.
And that's kind of what you have to do right now up until Eanix is really online. You're just kind of forced to play the more defensive role and bail your team out of these awkward scenarios. But now without that ultimate being online, that's an immediately go-ahead for the Gold Fury for Eanix.
Cherio going to meet up with Ducky in that mid lane. Gold Fury was flirted with, and there's the ultimate onto Dardaz from Fails, but immediately that Winged Blade getting Dardaz out of danger. Certainly a good pickup there for Elevate's support. So Eanix again, once more, resetting.
But the Wing Blade passive will be down for just a little bit longer, so all Fails has to do is keep wrapping around this backside and looking for Dardaz, who's waiting unexpectedly.
He's waiting for him exactly as you called it. There's the slice and dice onto Dardaz and immediately Fails, chasing him down and cleans him up. Cherio's gonna fall before he can get his Bracer of Undoing off. Funball claims his first life of the game. Decent unstable vortex there from Nulissa, excuse me, as everyone from Eanix was all grouped up, but already 2 dead on the side of Elevate. And it's Eanix looking for this Gold Fury, falling very low. Nulissa throws out a pot shot with the unstable vortex, but Eanix can't seem to decide if they want to take this fight or take the gold.
And there's the ultimate from Nulissa, but it's just a little bit too soon. Eanix stay pulling it, and it is going to go the way of Eanix, and now Ducky's just trying to chase down Jermaine in that backside.
Jermaine just able to juke out the abilities from Funball. That portal just off the mark from Nulissa as well. Somehow Jermaine survives in the middle of all of that chaos. Eanix secure the first big objective of the game. Their second 2 kills, that brings them up to 5 in total. up about 5,000 gold right now.
I was kind of waiting for Lobster to die and then for Eanix to get like a double or triple kill off of it.
Yeah, I mean, that looked like what was going to happen. It was just a clear bait into that Gold Fury pit, but with everyone on Eanix being very low, does mean that No Numbers had an opportunity to invade speed, but can't quite get it done in time. I think you can say the same about this Portal Demon for Elevate. Decent idea, but again, just a lack of damage across this team.
And it's just really unfortunate because you can tell the concept behind the draft is a very good one. It's just hard to translate into the actual game.
And that's one of the problems I think Elevate has had for quite some time. As a team that's always been right on the cusp of being really, really good. They look really, really good at times, and then other times they just seem to stumble a little bit. And I think picks and bans is one of those things that you can consistently go back to with this team and say, the idea is there, but you know, it'll work on paper, but in practice, you look across this roster and you could just tell very quickly that the damage just isn't going to be there.
And Funballer making quick work of that tower. Another unfortunate aspect is, sure, the Eanix has a little bit of time to come online as the game goes on later, but so does that Kronos.
And Nulissa's fallen behind in terms of XP pretty heavily, 3 levels down to Lobster right now. As you mentioned, Funball had quite a bit of ramp-up time in this one. Basically fully stacked on that Warlock Sash, and while Warlock Sash is not seen very often because of how long it takes to get there, Funball's there now. Through space of time, hits fails as he's locked in that cage in the mid lane. Dardes with the Blink ultimate's gonna pull 2. No, pull 0 actually, and a big Petrify coming out of Lobster is gonna lock No Numbers in place for the time being. Not long enough to find the kill as Ducky is chasing down Cherio. Funball's gonna be the one to clean it up though. No Numbers comes crashing down in the mid lane. Lobster trying to find him. Well-timed Aegis from Lobster baits No Numbers in. Lob survives, No Numbers does not. Another 2 kills go Eanix's way. And Elevate still looking for their first.
And they just don't have the secure. There are so many members on the side of Eanix that get poked out and into those potential kill thresholds. They just can't finish it off quite yet. Ducky yet again wrapping around to this backside. It's Dardes who's in trouble though. He's got Funballer chasing after him. Jermaine trying to gas pedal them down or at least keep them off his support. It is going to work out for right now, but I'm not sure how much longer Elevate can keep trying to take up these engagements.
Odysseus Bow coming up big there for Jermaine, spreading out that damage. Very much like Chain Lightning, very close in terms of looks as well. You want to be fighting against people like that in that tight corridor. Fails wants to be fighting Jermaine. He has to use his Aegis after the Nemesis ult. Still not going to be enough though. Fails, puts him in the ground. Number 4 can't find Jermaine anymore. Number 8 in total for Eanix. And they get the Portal Demon as well. This has been very clean from Eanix, and I think this is a team that has fallen into games that are kind of back and forth, you know, all over the place. This is not one of those games, Taco. Very, very clean game from Eanix.
Ducky having so much solo lane pressure just permitted Fails to run rampant everywhere else on the map. That's like the ideal scenario for the jungler when they don't have to worry about hanging out in that solo lane. Sure, solo lane's also a really easy opportunity for a jungler to get ahead, but at the expense of potentially losing Gold Furies or even just your teammates in the mid and dual lane sides. It's always great to be able to prioritize and take advantage of the Odin pick.
Cherio is in the wrong spot on the map. Through space and time, a good idea, but would have brought Cherio back into the clutches of Eanix. The cage is enough to get Cherio out all on his own. No ultimates used though from Eanix. Cherio had to use that cage, and the through space and time from Nulissa as well was expended. So Eanix now using this opportunity with the ultimate advantage to push down this mid lane. Jermaine stunned out, has the purification beads, and now uses them as Fails. Continues to push deep into the enemy backline. Good ultimate from Dardes, gonna pull Fails back in, but still not enough to find Elevate their first kill. Jermaine gonna fall 9 now for Eanix, as they already found that tier 2 tower in the mid lane. Every time you think, okay, this is where Elevate's gonna get a kill, Eanix somehow are able to escape.
I thought that was guaranteed. Fails use his purification beads so early, and he still gets out for free, and now Dardes is actually in a lot of trouble. Funballer forced into his ultimate, trying to back off, while No Numbers is trying to just smork down Lobster. Forced into the Aegis, actually super concerned he was going to die there. Yeah,
trying to get away from that Jingu Bang. Big Man Tinks finds No Numbers, now Fails, and Lobster still very low, but Cherio has to jump away because Ducky is chasing him down. Still gonna get stunned out by that Judgment Tether, but no Spirit Flail available for Ducky means that Cherio gonna be able to escape. But Eanix now at double digits in kills. Elevate, still an egg, 0.
nearly a 10K gold lead. Like that hurts, especially against the draft that Elevate is trying to execute. I really don't see a way for them to fight back into this game.
It's been tough thus far, almost 27 minutes in, and this is kind of the way that the European meta has gone as of late, Taco. It's not very early game focused overall. Look at Eanix's draft. Nothing about this draft except for Osiris screams early game to me. And then they play the early game very patient, very quietly. Elevate, their draft is much more early game focused and just wasn't able to make a splash.
Well, Medusa is still fairly strong as far as early game competitions are concerned, but it's nothing compared to the clear of an Odin. Gold Fury just being absolutely shredded by pretty much a double Hunter and a Nemesis. That's kind of just what you expect. The other concern here that I have for Elevate is the damage that they are meant to rely on. It's coming from Jermaine. It's supposed to be coming from Nilissa as well, but Jermaine's build doesn't really scream damage to me.
No, plenty of attack speed. He's got plenty of attack speed there. He's got the 2 bows, the Odysseus and the Ichabod, and then the Fatalis as well. But you're right, Odysseus bow really needs a lot of power to be effective, and the only real power that Jermaine has in that build is the Shifter Shield. He's top of his team in terms of player damage and pretty close to Ducky in terms of overall top damage in the game, but I agree with you. I think that this build is just a little bit too attack speed focused and not enough power.
He's trying to rely a little bit too heavily on that Kern passive, where if you bring them into melee range, you get the additional attack damage as well as just his summer stance in his 1. But I think he would have just been better off holding off on buying the Fatalis and just waiting for a chin size.
Jermaine now has to try and defend against Eanix on this Fire Giant. I don't think anyone's going to be able to do so, and they will not. Fire Giant goes down for Eanix. Cherio split pushing on the left-hand side. Nulissa shot off a cheeky little through space in time, trying to seal that objective away, I think, but couldn't do it quite in time. And now Eanix deciding they want to siege this up. Cherio has decided he doesn't want to team fight anymore. He wants to just push and get some much-needed farm, though. At this stage, I don't know how much items or levels is really going to help Odin become relevant.
It's not even that. Ducky backing just in case, really not permitting Elevate to get even the slightest bit of relevant gold, because it would at least help them hold out in their defenses, but they can't even do that. I mean, Eanix have just completely shut down this draft from Elevate.
Right side Phoenix is the focus here for Eanix. Phoenix and Eanix, very close. They've got some decent. They've got a really good tower siege composition. Look how much Funball did to that Phoenix very, very quickly. Down comes the cage from Cherio, but immediately met with a Petrify from Lobster. No numbers once more into the back line, trying to make life difficult for Lobster, while Ducky chases down Cherio. Can't quite finish him off for the time being, but fails can onto no numbers. Ducky gets portaled away by Nulissa. Great job there by Elevate's mid laner to save the life of her jungler, but cannot save the life of her right side Phoenix. That's gonna fall to the hand of Eanix, and now they change their minds and head towards mid. Big Man Ting still very healthy, tagging this up. There's the blanket from Cherio, gets the slow, and a big ultimate out of Jermaine as well, but again, just not enough damage to punish Eanix. Lobster still completely full HP, putting some pot shots into Jermaine. Big Man Ting's still healthy enough to tank up the remaining shots of that Phoenix, and Funball and squad come away with both Phoenixes down.
I think that Elevate just got incredibly lucky that Eanix still haven't taken even the T1 tower in the dual lane. Otherwise, I think we would have seen Eanix trying to pressure a little bit more inside that Titan room area for Elevate, just because they can.
They really can. I mean, no one's doing any damage to Eanix right now. Jermaine now up on top in terms of the player damage. Pretty high up there, 21,000 in total. That Odysseus bow really coming up big because of how grouped up Eanix has been in these team fights. Even if we don't like the build, it's certainly working out for the Elevate Hunter. But at the end of the day, I mean, look at where everyone else is. Cherio, bottom of the player damage charts in the game. And that's just the pick more than anything else in my mind. He's
getting the damage from the Odibo spreading, but it's not like it's really relevant actual damage. It's kind of like solo laners at the start of a game where they're just slapboxing each other for like 8, 9K damage that doesn't really ever actually count. And it's just unfortunate because with this, he just doesn't have any burst, and that's kind of what you need if you're going for the Odin combination.
No shred, you know, there's no chin size to make you rack up damage very, very quickly. There's no crit either. I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, there's just not a lot of burst damage coming out of the mid lane, 0 out of the jungle. We've harped on it quite a bit, but for me, that's what this game really comes down to, is Elevate needed to win this game whenever their damage was relevant in the early game. They did not. Eanix's draft come late game would be disgusting, even if Elevate had great late game, but they don't, and that's why you see Eanix just be able to really steamroll Elevate now.
And it's kind of surprising because when you think about it, the Odin pick is actually great here. I mean, nobody on the side of Eanix other than Ducky has an actual escape, and maybe Funballer if he times it right. But no one had an escape for that Odin ring, and so the concept, again, was just awesome. It's just really, Odin just does not pair that well with a Giannis, and when you already have the Giannis locked in, it's better to just look for something that pairs alongside of that.
That's the thing. It's, you know, we had the Giannis, and then it's, oh, you know what would be good here? Odin, without really thinking about the synergies within your own team, I think was the problem there. Dardez gets stunned out by Funball, and quite a bit of damage onto him. Not as much as on no numbers. He's back in the fountain already. Nulissa chased down by Ducky. She's forced to through space of time away. And all of this in the name of creating space. Eanix knocked down the final Phoenix and now back up as the Fire Giant has fallen off of them. Just gonna wait around for the next 50 seconds until FG respawns.
Spend whatever gold they might want to, and then like you said, that Fire Giant's going to be spawning pretty quickly here for Eanix, so I don't see Elevate really having any chance to contest this one. And really, things are just looking pretty grim all around because kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If they don't defend the FG, then Eanix can just super easily pressure into the Titan room. If they do defend the Fire Giant, then they're just going to end up potentially wiping and then losing from that anyway.
I mean, they might not even need to wipe to lose because of how many Fire minions would be pouring into the base, though. Thus far, Elevate does have done a good job of pushing up these waves. Really, that one on the left is the closest to the Phoenix for now, and so they've got some time. You can push out these waves pretty far and give yourself a 45 to a minute window to defend a Fire Giant. But I don't know. I mean, you're right. I think that Elevate's just stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. They can't win a fight even with help of their Titan right now, potentially.
I don't know, that Titan is pretty OP. If Eanix were to completely ignore the Titan and no fire creeps were inside of the base, I think they'd have a solid shot.
Sure, but that's pretty dependent on Eanix making a pretty gross misstep.
Well, they're going to have two Phoenixes coming back up for Elevate. For
now, but immediately Eanix going right for that right side Firebird. Lobster pushing up this wave in mid as well because I don't think he's even needed. Cheerio can, or excuse me, Funball can literally just one-shot this mid-Phoenix at this stage. That's one auto attack from the late game. Fire Giant buffed Kronos. No numbers immediately focused down by Eanix. The No numbers has not been able to do a good job of getting into the back line because of how good the focus has been from the veteran Eanix. Immediately, every time Lobster's under pressure, all of Eanix turns to help. Mid-Phoenix already fell. Right side Phoenix gone as well. No numbers, barely able to get up into the Somersault Cloud. With 1 HP almost, he's going to have to retreat to the Titan room. Right side Phoenix about halfway up in terms of respawns, but I think Eanix is just waiting for as many minions as possible to help debuff the Titan.
And not having Numbers' ultimate available to him is going to make things incredibly rough for Elevate to try and hold off this siege. They're really relying on that amount of frontline potential that Numbers could provide, but he's not really frontlining a whole lot against this comp.
How do you frontline against a full build Kronos or a full build Nemesis? You know, it's hard enough frontlining against a full build Medusa. Good luck up against those two on top of that. Eanix playing this one pretty slow. Fail's gonna meet up with No numbers on that right-hand side, and again, it's just Eanix waiting for the fire creeps as long as possible. Melissa can't even clear them all by herself at this stage of the game. Does have that round up to Hootie online, though, so look for the one-shot potential, but one-shot potential out of Dardez. He's immediately very low and fails. Is going to claim the doesn't kill for Eanix. Elevate still looking for their first. Titan already down to about 50% HP. Funball and Lobster forced off of the objective, but no one can stop the other two members from Eanix. A clean 12-0, 35 minutes. Eanix